optimized for them to bring them across. And then you do the same thing for a logged in user. You're trying to get them successful with an application, and you're capturing what they did and make it a little more relevant along the way.
And so to my first question, therefore, back on that, what is it that the cloud's enabling for you that wouldn't be possible otherwise?
Yeah, there's several different things. So we're a big data, real-time big data analytics solution. And so in order to solve this kind of problem in an in-premise scenario, and there are people doing that, right? If you look at the biggest banks of the world, they're doing exactly this. They're building this kind of solution themselves. But they're taking 100 people on a huge clusters of their own that they build. And so the cost of this to build for a smaller organization would be prohibitive. And so by being on the cloud and amortizing across a whole bunch of different users in a sharing kind of model, you're able to bring the price to the point where everybody can do it.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest, is just that amortization of the cost. And then also the second is the ability to scale the big data processing, even for one customer, to be able to scale it up and down depending on the workload at the time. That would have been difficult to do in a prior life.
And then, of course, cloud applications are the core of who you're going to approach, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so you're very much sort of a native cloud application. And what does mobile mean for you?
Yeah, so we're seeing mobile, we're primarily focused on mobile web right now. Moving toward mobile app, but primarily focused on mobile web. And we don't see a huge difference there versus browser-based in a laptop or tablet kind of scenario in terms of the kinds of things we're doing. We see a lot of it, but fundamentally we're doing the same kinds of things, personalizing that experience there. We're going to differentiate whether they're on mobile or web, but it's not like a fundamental.
Why should you care? This is a big question. Some folks are predicting that cloud services will increase at an annual rate, so spending on cloud services will increase at an annual rate of 26%. So that's very rapid. Compare that to the annual spending rate, anticipated annual spending rate of 5% for all the rest of IT. So you can see that it's predicted to move very quickly. Also, I try to put, just to inform you, I've tried to put the sources as links in the bottom of when I'm presenting any sort of statistics, so you can find the actual source itself. Some of the benefits of cloud computing, this slide might be a little bit misleading, so make sure to check out the more detailed slide in the notes. But little to no upfront costs. Often you don't have to buy servers, you don't have to buy software. You can just kick it off, and there's no startup cost or minimal startup cost, but watch out for recurring fees. You've got operating costs that are often more than you were experiencing before. Little to no IT staff required. This is an oversimplification, but often it's true. Like I said, did you need help setting up your email account? Probably not. With some of the more basic stuff like document sharing or project management software, you probably don't need a whole lot of help from an IT person to get you up and running. But if you're going with something more like a CRM that needs to be configured for you, obviously you will need some consulting time. No on-site servers. Here's one of the green benefits. You're not buying servers which are very dirty. We'll get to that in just a moment. Rapid deployment. Often these things are turnkey. You request your account and you've got one within minutes or within the hour. Convenience. If you have staff, remote volunteers, they can access these systems as well without requiring you to set up a complex VPN or other complex network or have your people in your office. As long as they have an internet connection, they should be able to access cloud services. And this last one is a bit of a benefit and a curse. So you're always on the latest software. No more worrying about whether you have to upgrade, or are you way behind, are you on software that's no longer supported. You're always on the latest software. But beware, you might not be ready to be on the latest software. If you customize anything, you have to watch out and make sure that you're doing it in a way that when the vendor plans their upgrade, you're not left behind and suddenly have a broken system.
So Anna, if I can just jump in. I have a couple of comments on some points in this slide. As you said, the little or no upfront costs, I kind of read that as a transfer of costs. In the not cloud computing environment, we have big capital investments in hardware, in servers, in infrastructure. In the cloud, you don't. Somebody else has already bought those and they're renting them to you. But the maintenance costs, the monthly costs go up. So it's you know, different vendors, different cloud computing opportunities are going to offer opportunities for cost savings. But in general, I think it's kind of a shift, not a break. And then what I like to comment, I'm reasonably sure with this many people on the call, we have a number of people who actually work in IT listening. And I read the little or no IT staff required. When I hear that, or people on my IT staff hear that, it sounds kind of scary. You know, are we going to eliminate IT? And my take on it is that what we're doing is we're changing what IT does. When cloud computing, and I think it is kind of an assumption cloud computing will become much more prevalent, we'll need less people maintaining servers and doing that kind of work in our offices. But for the smart IT people who are flexible and can learn new skills, it's an opportunity to do more meaningful work, more work that is helping people use the software, configuring the software to meet the mission. And I think that overall, if we can adapt, IT people like me, this is going to mean that we'll do better work and we'll have more satisfying jobs.
Great. Thanks, Peter and Anna. Now I'd like to learn a little bit more about how this is impacting nonprofits and libraries specifically. Anna, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure thing. So what cloud computing really does in many respects is it allows you to focus more on your mission and your programs. It should ideally take away a lot of the infrastructure pain that you might be suffering. For instance, we're always having to work on our Exchange server because we're not on the latest version and we're overloading it. So we spend a lot of infrastructure time instead of being able to focus on our mission and programs. Here's that other one that I mentioned before, always on the latest technology, a blessing and a curse. Often it's a wonderful thing, just make sure you're prepared to manage it. Predictable, measurable cost. So again, instead of having your upfront costs where you have to buy servers, you have to buy software, what if those servers die unexpectedly? Suddenly you have to come up with another $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 to replace your server. This way your servers don't die. You have repeatable, measurable costs. It's like a utility. You know approximately how much you pay for energy each month. You should know approximately how much you should expect to pay for your cloud computing each month. Save on total cost of ownership. I'm not so clear on this one. It really depends on the software or the service that you're using. Some of them, sure, you really will save on total cost of ownership. Otherwise, it will spread out the cost, as Peter was saying, less upfront, but shifting to more monthly ongoing costs. And improved capabilities and service levels, especially in small to medium-sized nonprofits, I think you can expect to see this. And what I mean by it is that folks they'll have more uptime on their servers. Often servers are more secure than you can do, especially if you have limited IT staff and limited skills in certain areas. And you should be looking at SLAs with each vendor that you're working with. So now we'll get to some of the shifting of costs and the shifting of how you might work. More choices means more complexity. So now we've got something you can install on your computer or a version in the cloud. How do you compare those? So it is more complicated and more confusing. Might take a little bit more time for you to sort out what is the right choice for our organization. I would encourage you, especially if you're a small to medium-sized nonprofit, look for more mature services out there. So web hosting, HR services, and conferencing like ReadyTalk, the one that we're using right now. And steer clear of the less mature ones. You know, security and disaster recovery, those aren't quite there. Forrester actually has done